I don't know that we have enough time to get it too deep here, but let me know if there is. I'll kind of give you a heads up on a few things that it's not quite as pretty yet as digital. You know, I no longer have a graphic designer as a roommate that I can just say, hey, do this for me. And it's more built, it has predominantly all the functionality of V2, but it is built to expand upon it. I think you'll see another release a month or two from now where it's been expanded upon as far as some of the formulas and calculations and its abilities. I got stuck for almost 3 days on one formula, trying to expand it, and decided I would hold off and just get everything out and working in a similar formula formats anyway, and then I can take a step back and breathe and really work out the details on one or two few things. Let me share my screen real quick. Sorry about that. My go-to meeting just locked up. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Let's just start with a couple of the other products real quick. One is 3D printing. Now this is filament 3D printing. I'll talk about resin 3D printing in a second. Now, the shops we've talked to predominantly are going to get this gram usage out of their slicing machine, the machine that kind of does the layout that tells them how these are going to print. It does work, however. Now, currently, the height, width, and depth are all in millimeters because that's predominantly in that world what they're working in. You can switch these variables to inches, and it will switch these to inches, and it will still work. I did this because this seems to be how the technical side are going to want to look at it. But these could be switched to inches, and you could do fractions of an inch. Now, if we're doing a particular 3D print item, doesn't matter what it is, there's a couple things it's going to do based off of these numbers. If I haven't overwritten the grams and the fill, it's going to figure out how many grams are needed to do this function. Now that is really based off of a couple things. If you look at the filament, every filament has a diameter, a width, and a density. These are really both coming into play at different things. The density is what's giving you the gram weight based off the size, and then the filament length. Typically, if you're familiar with 3D printing, these are going to come in a 3 millimeter or 1.75. The densities vary based off of whether it's PLA or SLA or the different types of plastics. In this case, if I change this just to the ABS, my gram weight will change fairly significantly because of the density of the material. The clients we worked with we're charging basically on a per gram basis, and so that is a function in the area-based pricing. It doesn't need to be, but there is a per gram based off the material, if that's how they're charging. Now, to come up with the print times, you need a number of factors. One is the print speed. This is the published speed, basically from the printer, less some, just like digital, of the millimeters per second. But what that actually means is the runtime is the gram weight by the volume, by the extrusion, by the layer, by the run speed, which is this extrusion and layer. Now these can be defined. Generally, they're the same, depending on what they're doing. They don't change them too often. They may, and those can also be saved with the template. That's what they're just doing it now. And that is the, now everything, of course, the material weight, they're buying everything in kilos. Those spools are by the kilo, not by the length, because based off the density, the length is going to vary. So everything is really based off the kilo. This filament length here is for informational purposes. It won't really do anything, but it's a good thing for them to know. Any thoughts there on 3D printing?
Nope.
Nope.
I don't know a whole lot about 3D printing to give you any feedback at this point. I mean, I know what it is and how it's printed.
That's why I'm kind of...
Yeah, how they price it or what fields need to be there.
Yeah. Right, that's what I'm trying to get kind of to where if a client wants to know, the formulas are written out as far as how the speeds are calculated.
Yeah, I mean, it looks fine. It looks fine to me.
SLA is a different type of 3D printing. It's a resin printing where it's using a liquid. So it's generally by the milliliter instead of by the gram. This all works the same way. You know, depending on what it is, it's going to figure out how many milliliters you need, etc. Now, and then you have a resin, which is based off of, it's a liquid. So the main problem I'm having here, and why I'm not considering done with it, this works differently, that the piece basically dips into the resin, a laser comes and uses UV and dries it, and then the thing picks back up, squeegees, wipes it, it goes back down, and another laser hits it. 90% of the time is that thing going up and down and the squeegee swiping it. The formula for the dimensions of the bottom to actually calculate the usage, the time the laser takes to hit it, is completely false. I mean, I cannot find it. Now, I've spent hours on some of these already and found them. This one I've spent days, and I cannot find any rational thought of how fast that is. So I'm going to basically put in one for the thickness, the depth, etc. The micron, the resolution is the thickness basically of each layer, and that'll get us 95% there, I think. And then I'll keep digging and see if I can't get that other 5% of the speed. But that's where this one's at. It'll be ready for the morning as well. I'll just lock that in. The other thing we've done differently in this data set is I did update the screen print product. The main difference here is that it has a print sheet size, which is different than the other size. So I can define a print sheet. Now, if you don't define the print sheet, it is going to come from the material, Coroplast. It can default, of course, from other ways as well. But if I was, that's my default print sheet size. But let's just say it's 18 by 24s that I'm sending to the printer. It's going to break down the 48 by 96, so it knows how many print. Let me do a number of these just so we have some numbers. So in this particular case, it knows it needs 12 print sheets. If I look at the Coroplast information, this is the sheets. There's 12 of them, and then the overall cut to sheet, it thinks it needs 12 18 by 24s, so therefore it's going to take 2 sheets of overall 18 by 24s. The other change to the screen print product, which was requested, is that each color now has its own. Yes.
Hey, can I ask you a quick question before you move on from that? So the image is
Certainly.
3 by 8. The print sheet, that's going to be the screen. So the print sheet is considered the screen?
Now, the print sheet is how big they're going to cut this 4 by 8 in to get it onto the press.
Okay. Okay, so that's kind of like that's like a pre-cut.
Yeah.
It's a pre-cut.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're taking their flat stock and cutting it to a run size.
Yep.
Right.
Okay, I got it now.
And there's now a pre-cut option here to cut it into those that is really going to feed off of those numbers. So this is the 12 18 by 24s out of that material. Where if I do a standard cutting, this is cutting the 3 by 8s out of the 18 by 24s, depending on how you want to cut them out.
Got it. And one last thing, just on the quantities here, which I hear it all the time, is overs Is there a way to do a % over, or, and you almost need to not charge for that, right? So they don't charge for the over. You know, it could be, 2% over.
Easy not to charge for it in an area-based structure. Not easy to not charge for it in a cost-based structure.
Okay.
Because then we're
Makes
going to add in material, etc. I could easily do the quantity to automatically add in a percentage to the total quantity, which would do that, and it would work as a it would work in an area-based situation, and it would still display 200 on the invoice, but the actual price would come from all of them.
I mean, you guys are probably closer to it than I am. I just hear it.
Sure. No, I'm good.
But I know they generally don't charge for that. Now, I get the cost plus model. I mean, it is what it is. It's additional cost to them. You know, they could add in a discount or something of that nature. You know, I mean, it needs something needs to be there on the work order.
It would show on the invoice that it's only charging for 200, and it would divide the price of all of them into 200 and give them that price. But
I think that would be okay. What you think, Joe?
Yeah.
I do. I think that would be fine.
Yeah, that's straightforward, just adding in a percentage to the total quantity, and then it would all work that way.
Okay, you keep going. That's just data point.
Other than that, everything basically works the same. Oh, let's look at the colors. Basically, we now have an ink type, and so you can choose your ink type, then your color. If you go into more colors, this is just breaking down sides 1, sides 2, and 8 different colors per piece, etc. Because it's just space. So it's done. But I don't see them printing more than 4 colors too often anymore. So it's a choice.
Yeah, only if it's more of a specialty company do you really see them getting into higher colors.
All right, now let's talk about electric a little bit. I'll start with the bad news, or not the bad news. There are 2 products that are in V2 that are not in V3 and won't be at least until the next release. One of those is pylons. Now there is a way to do pylons without it, and the other is foundations, like concrete foundations.
They can do that all through that parts grid, though, right?
Oh yes, exactly.
Like the sign fabrication product, they could do that. They could do that through there.
Correct. And I do plan to have one, but it's just not as big of a priority as some of the other things.
Yeah.
Let's just start with an extruded. Let's just start with an extruded sign. Okay. Most of the structure is maintained the same. We basically have a height and width. You have your template that again can be used for area-based pricing, setting defaults, etc. If we're doing a sign cabinet, 6, and you're going to see this form throughout electric. The depth is known because it's coming from an extruded piece of 6 inches. The extruded cutter, that's pretty straightforward. We're using the cutter both for the labor of cutting it as well as the labor of putting it together. So it's similar to V2 as corners per hour, and the rounded corners are equal double. We have square corners and rounded corners, and then corner keys or rounded corner keys. Each piece of material can be defined differently as far as what its usage is. Each one of these usages, and this is kind of the stuff that can expand upon, you'll see it in other products. So if they decide they don't like the way it's calculating the material, it's fairly straightforward because it's all based on this list, like everywhere else. Right now, this is just 2 on the horizontal, 2 vertical. It's what it's looking at. That could be a formula, that could be a fraction, that could be anything you want it to be. If an implementer needs to change that. The extrusion type 2 is kind of the same thing. It's just for a separate extrusion that may only be going on one side or 3 sides, etc. Could be a completely different piece of extrusion. Both of these, the main difference in the setup for materials is it's a length and a depth. Other than that, it's the same. And all right, and then this usage will define that usage as well. So if it's just on the bottom, if you're looking at the usage, this is where I think I can clean. This is using a perimeter function the same way it does in V2. I will continue to add tabs into here for different utilizations as they come about and as I can figure them all out. But it's basically giving you different lengths, your layout, how it's coming up and with any scrap, same with the secondary frame. And it's figuring out how many pieces are needed. Now, in this particular scenario, if I go into, it is automatically pulled in a fixed side, which is my backing, because I said it was single-sided, so therefore it's just automatically pulling in the fixed side. Each one of these products generally has a structure product built in, and this is really just that part picker. I can go in and pull in whatever parts I want into this particular product structure. Printed face really is just the digital printed face. It's really not, it's really just a digital print product at this point. Where the vinyl face is really just a vinyl print product, just with its own templates, that nature. The retainer, in this case, is really just a clone of the cabinet. It's really the same product with just some changes made as far as what extrusion materials are used, and this should have defaulted. Let's check that. Other than that, it's really working the same way as far as the retainer is concerned, as far as the math and everything else is concerned. LED lighting. Now this is strand LED lighting. I will be adding another LED lighting for more of the, when they're buying the full module or the full backings, when they're not stranding them themselves, when they're just buying LED bulbs, basically. This particular case, we have our true white, our vertical, our strokes, and our mods per stroke. These numbers, strokes and mods per stroke, will be working if I have anything to do with it by tomorrow. There's another one I've been fighting on, but it will be done in the morning. This is based off of, let's just take a look at a couple things. Yeah, depending on how many they need, etc. Okay, the main difference here is what we're tracking with the LED. Basically, it's a watts per mod, mods in series, and then the mods per feet. This then allows you to figure out the placement table. I'll get back to that in a minute. This allows them to know, length, total wattage that they're going to know what power supply to use or how many they're going to need, and the watts each. Now, this placement table, based off the manufacturer, this is another formula that I've been fighting with, so I've decided just to use a table for now to do it, is based off the depth, meaning this has a 6-inch depth. That is really what is defining how many mods they need to use based off the brightness or whatever of the light. Because if it's real close, if they only have like a 2-inch depth, they need a lot more lights to not get the little hot spots everywhere, so it doesn't look like a bunch of little lights. If they move it back, they can actually use fewer but maybe brighter lights. There's a table for all of this based off an actual LED. And so that's what I was really trying to find, is based off the watts or based off of something else. Could I just mathematically figure this out? If you see anything of this nature and want to send it to me, that would be great. I haven't been able to find it, so for now, this placement table will be a table from the manufacturer that will define their spacing that's needed based off of this depth. So if it was a double-sided, the depth would be split in half, and it's going to change those. Your light bars, it's basically your extruded light bars, or they may just be angle irons that they're putting in the middle. And of course, the power supplies. I think that's pretty straightforward. You do have your vertical, your horizontal, or a channel. Typically, that's going to be a channel LED lighting template, which is going to define this as the default. All right. Next thing is painting. There is a separate painting for the electrical products. Now, this painting are definable as well, meaning this return interior, return exterior, and I'll show you some others, are renameable and redefinable based off of this location. So I may name something different for a channel than a cabinet or whatever I want to do. And what this is really doing is taking in, my area based off the return. So it's 6 inches by all the way around. It's 12 feet. Then I have my paint type and my paint color, of course, for the interior, the exterior, etc. Now there's really 2 sets of these functions. There's 4 little sections, 2 that can be turned on and off. If I was going to do the cabinet and the back, you will get a more location button, and that way this has a back interior, a back exterior. Again, these are all defined based off of this actual list. So, and you'll see the area went up as well, because what we really have in this list is the location. These are the names, back interior, return exterior, that they're being labeled. And then these are the actual functions as far as what is being done, the areas. So this is for the first one, this is for the second one. So these are actually pretty easy for an implementer as well, just to add in different functions kind of on the fly of what they might be painting. So you never really know. Other than that, it works predominantly like the other painting product does. Now there's actually a number of painting in here, meaning these are individual. If a painting, you can tie a painting to the main product, which would include, like if I wanted to do an undercoat everywhere all the time wherever I paint, this is going, whatever is in here is going to cover all the area of that. Just going to kind of, so a whole undercoat or something of that nature. Inside this, you can also add 2 additional materials if you always used it. So I could put an undercoat here instead of on the other side and use that as an option or something else. The print product. Outsource is, since the fairly straight thing is material type. So it usually pulls in the material. So if I say name is generally just generic, just type in whatever you want. But the purchase order will always give at least the material type. Other than that, the costing is, this is really just in the same way that a part works. Now the reason it's done this way and this were changed, and we have even our cut rate, is we're using this now, we're finding in a lot of architectural type products as an actual parent product. Children, and then do some processes to something, and it will know if I need to cut it, it will know the cut rate, it knows the sizes, so children can feed off. Assembly is really a child, this is one of the only so far child only products that are in the system. It's not only, it can be used as a standalone, but it can't really have children of its own. And the reason being is you set this product up in a similar way to everything else. Okay? These lines, though, no longer continue a process. These are actually now the names of what you want listed in this assembly. So I can clone this and have it rename it something else for screen printing, and then list all my different projects that I have for screen printing. If I just want to add in an extra hour for lighting labor, I can just go in and say it's an hour and write in my notes for what I need for that lighting hour. It is adding up all the labors that we add in into the labor component. Now, if I wanted to not charge for the time of a lighting, I just wanted to charge a price, I could also just go in and say I want to charge X dollar amount instead of labors. And then it's going to click into a fixed price subtotal rather than a labor time. So this product is really just a catch-all. The other thing you can do is link it into the parent product. So maybe I want to calculate the labors automatically. I can do that based off of one of these formulas. And again, this is just a list that we can go in and tweak whatever formulas we want. But these can look at the parent values. So if I say I want to charge an extra $1 per perimeter, it knows based off the parent what that perimeter is. And that's why I say it's pretty much a child-only type product, as far as it being able to pull from all its separate components. And this really is a catch-all. You can set your template to set defaults, you know, to where I could say just charge an extra 2 minutes per square foot for something based in the template that automatically opens for certain products. I could do that as well. And so that's kind of a whole new substance. You'll see this throughout the electric data set, kind of as a catch-all. All right.
So all the labor goes to that assembly piece, right? Every bit of it?
No,
Okay.
not at all. Virtually none of it is required to go to that piece. Everything is based off of something else. Generally, it's based off the equipment. Like this extrusion cutter
Okay.
is actually defining for both for the cutting and the assembly. And these are these labors here.
Okay, I got it.
This is really just a
now.
catch-all for anything else.
Okay, I thought I heard you say that. I was just confirming that wasn't the case. Okay, I'm good.
All right. Now let's talk a little bit about custom sign cabinets. It is a separate product and control at this point. I may end up combining these, but I really needed to think them out separate. As I saw it anyway.
So we have an extruded, and then we have a custom stick building. Okay, got it.
Correct. Typically with the custom, you're starting with the skin. So we have our cutter, our material, and then the same thing is true as far as the usages. Now, there's actually multiple ways of using this material. You'll see full and back. Full basically is the perimeter. Just throw in some numbers. Okay. So full, of course, is exactly that. It's just going to throw in all the way around it. If I look at this information, it'll, again, not the prettiest, but it does break everything down. I need 2 horizontal, 2 vertical. There's no other square footage out of my sheet and how that lays out to be on the first material. If I select more of a full and back, then it's going to calculate that as 2 functions. It's going to say that I need my vertical and horizontal and then additional usage of that back. So these are kind of formula based that can be controlled as well, just from the usage. And I may do something different with, well, that's right, aluminum, with a different piece. You know, that's at the top, bottom, left sides are all being made out of something different. That can be defined as well. Now they may not choose to use the back this way. It's just raw. I still have the fixed side if we want to use it, like the other product, where it adds in the backing. The main difference here, though, is when we get into framework, because now we have the skin, so now we need the frame. Hold on, control's kind of freezing up on me.
It's probably the server.
Yeah. Internet's been down. All right, basically similar function for the structure. It knows its sizes and everything. This is just basically, could be hand cut, could be whatever you'd like. Here though, we're using angle iron, you know, as our frame structure. You can use 2 separate types of structure. Again, add what you'd like. Our usages are very different though. It's ladder only, frame only, just support. But this can kind of be defined as well. Other than that, we still have the corners and rounded corners. We still have corner keys that they may choose to use, but they now have ladder centers if filling in a ladder. And these formulas work in the same way, as that they've got two primary functions, vertical, horizontal, how many, and then a custom formula that you can kind of fill in whatever they want to fill in to add additional usage. The structure frame, you could start this whole product in reverse. I could have started with the frame and then add the other structure, but I think some people don't frame them at all, like if they make a real small wall cabinet, so I felt that it should start with the structure first. Painted face, vinyl face, retainer, LEDs, paint outsource, all of those are basically the same. The main difference here is how this one works and then how the frame structure works. Other thing I did just add on Brian's note is you will see a UL CSA. This is a shared variable, so it can be searched on if they want to search by a UL number on any of their orders. I added that last night. Okay.
Hey, when you say a shared variable they can search on, where do they do that?
You can do it in Explorer, I think. Still has that option if you're exploring line items.
Oh, I got you. Yep.
Yeah, I can
Yeah,
choose the variable for.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yep.
All right. Next, let's talk about channel letters a little bit. Oh. Server for the last 2 days. All right, back to where we were. Channel letters. Okay. Basically, you have similar to V2, it just in a way you have your full text, whatever that might be. You have your size of this particular text, so maybe I'm just doing one character that is 36 inches high. Okay, in this case, it's using a letter coil. It's taking its depth from the letter coil. We have our bender, which is giving us that information. Our font is really giving us that function. If you recall in V2, the height multiplier based off of serif can be defined, and these can really be redefined in any way that you want. We have our bend speed, so similar to the cut speed in materials, this is coil, so therefore instead of a cut speed, it actually has a bend speed. If I look at that information, actually, I need to relabel this, but this is really referring to speeds. Now, in these cut rates, this is everywhere in the system, just an FYI, I did make a change a while back that they do not need to be medium. If you don't want standard, medium, or slow, and they want to define, like in V2, every material had a very specific cut speed. You can do the same thing here just by typing in the number. You don't have to use it. If you have a typed in number, it's going to use that in your rate. And that's for any of the cutters instead of one of these numbers for slow, standard, and medium. But if anyone's looking for that function from V2, I did add it back in. It's just you type it in. All right, so the same thing though. We have our channel coil, the S. That's all pretty straightforward. It will break down. Well, for some reason, these buttons, I need to fix that real quick, aren't showing the right one, but I'll get back to that. Other than that, everything I think is correct. We have the formula, basically where it's coming from. And you can add scrap and everything into this button. I'll go clean that up real quick. The other one is if we're going to add a size, meaning this was the S, so I still need the AMS. Now, each one of these can be completely controlled differently, meaning the S may get a particular structure, may get a face, may get a trim cap. These additional channels are really just start overs. Now I have AMS, my height instead of 36, I'm going to say it's 24. And it's going to calculate all that same information. Again, I could change any of this or go in and add its own structure. It is looking at the different size as a completely new function. So it could get its own raceway, it can get its own painting differently, etc. And that we had a client that would prefer it. I discussed with them putting multiples in one line item, and they didn't like it. They much preferred it to kind of break apart so that each one can really be dug down into. The structure is the same thing, the back is the same, the face is the same, the trim cap is the same, the lighting is the same, the paint is the same. The raceway. The raceway I'm going to add this evening, it is really nothing more than a clone of the cabinet product to build out a raceway. So it won't take me long, everything's done, I'm just making sure the cabinet is as clean as I want before I clone it into a raceway. Or being able to really build out a raceway. Any thoughts on channel letters?
Nope, none here.
All right. Jump in the next
It's going
one.
to take me some time playing with it. You're recording this, huh, Linda?
Yes,
Yes.
I am. I am
Okay.
recording.
Now let's talk a little bit about electric service and install. All right. This one works a lot like V2, just since it has the child components, it's a little different. We don't have 3 visits in one product anymore. We basically have a 3 hours, 1 hour install. You can choose your functions, the start date, similar to what we had in V3, or the install date. The only main difference, and then we have our location information. This is basically the information that was in the other one, height above ground, contacts. There are 2 contacts. One of our beta clients really wanted to have 2 separate contacts in the system for each location. Most of these are just lists that can be filled in, or they can just be typed in. Want to do. If I go in to add a trip, basically just adding in another visit, additional service visit that works the same way. It's really just a clone. Travel is really for your per diem and travel expenses. The same thing here is true. I have a start date and an end date for this visit that will give you some calculations as far as days, depending on what you wanted to do. These expenses can be defaulted, of course. So if I have daily meals, days, unit. Now this price is defaulting based off of this list. I've told it my daily meals are $50 a piece per diem or whatever it's going to be. I could not have it default anything, so they just type it in. Oh, and my quantity, unfortunately, because I chose the same day twice, didn't update. So for 9 days, $50 and any additional notes. These are really just add-ons. You can kind of do whatever you want, mileage, parking. These are really just defining the units. All of this is in this list. It can just be added to where you have
Yep. Is the speed,
yeah,
some
days.
of that speed delay we're seeing, is it because of the amount of variables there, or what is that?
No, it's because the internet connection to the server at the office isn't great, and mine's got a little lag between coming from them and then going back up to you. It's usually not this laggy.
Okay.
And that's the travel. That is, I said, I think, let's see if there's any children I forgot. that's it.
What about site
And so I-
survey? Are we going to get that one added in?
We will. Again, there are a number of things that I will add in the next months. I really just wanted the base out there.
Okay.
A site survey would actually be fairly easy to do. I just kind of made a priority list of what I wanted to get done.
Yeah, I
Get
demoed
it
that
at
one a
least
good bit
into implementer.
in V2, just so you're aware. I do show that one a good
Okay.
bit. Now, whether people use it or not in the real world, I don't know. But from a sales perspective, it's
Mhm.
it seems to be attractive. You know.
Okay. Sure. Now, as far as the yeah, it should need to be a separate product because they're going to charge for it separately, right?
Yep.
Yeah. If they charge for it. Sounds good. And that's really where I'm at. I said by tomorrow morning they're going to pull it for implementers and for you to play around with. But play around with it, punch at it. As I said, I haven't had a lot of eyes on it, so and I've spent a lot of late nights. So if you see spelling errors, things that don't line up, definitely shoot them to me.
Okay.
Dean, do you want it on your sales server or CRM, or how do you want
Is there any
advanced
reason?
copy?
Is there any reason I can't start demoing this and selling it, or do we want to wait on that?
I would say you could demo it. I would say that it will be released in 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's
what I
not
would
going to
say.
be released until 2 weeks from now, the earliest.
Right.
It'll definitely be out by the end of the month.
But let me ask you a question. I mean, if I start working with a prospect on the sign manufacturing side, would you rather them go V3 or would you rather them go V2?
V3, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd rather them go V3. It's just where all advancements are going. I would clarify that it's a new release. You might even show them both. Clarify it's a new release so that we got a little bit of patience up front from them. But and then if something doesn't jive exact, that we're still in the tweaking phase, so we can probably help them as well. I would just make that clarity that it's new, which means you're going to get a little more flexibility, but you may need a little more patience.
Yeah. I don't know. Y'all make that call. I mean, because I'm going to demo what I have. Joe, the couple demos next week. Do you know if they are electric or wide format off the top of your head?
The Sign Pro New Jersey is electric. And let me look at the other one. I think 2 of them are electric.
So 2
The
out of
other
4.
concern is you selling something this week or next week and then seeing them at ISA in 2 months, showing something completely different as well. But
Well, I mean, no, we're going to SGIA, not ISA.
Mm-hmm.
So we won't see
SGIA,
many
that's what
electric. Yeah, we won't
Right.
see
Won't
many
see
electric
electric.
shops there. No, I mean, we'll
You
see a
won't.
few. Don't get me wrong, we'll see a few. But it's not the electric sign show. I mean, that was in
Mhm.
April. I'm
Services.
okay either way. I just want to make sure I'm going to demo what I have, and right now I have no electric. So these demos will be V2 specifically.
Mhm.
I want to move away from it as fast as y'all let me move away from it, but
Right.
I would demo this one. I would demo V3 because 2 weeks is not, if we need to get them something to play with and then update them, just tell them that it won't be released for 2 weeks, but we may be able to get you a beta version to start with or something of that nature. That would be perfectly fine.
Okay. With that being said, Linda, I would replace the V3 I have there now with this data set.
Now, before testing? Because like we're going to be fine tuning, going through, checking for spelling, buttons working, and things like that all
We-
next week.
We can, yeah, it
Um,
depends. How much custom stuff do you have in there? Do you want me to just do a whole import into it so we don't mess up your
I
current?
don't. I actually demo a lot of the V2 data set. When I look at that, when we start looking at dashboards, they don't ever see it. They don't ever notice it. I pause the screen. I run both copies. So I demo the V2 when it comes to tracking jobs and dashboards, and I need to get away from that. But part of it's because it's there. I haven't been forced to move away from it. But I mean, with that being said, why don't we do another instance? If Brandon can set up another instance of V3-electric, that would be
Okay.
great.
Okay. All right. I'm going to have to get him to do that maybe tomorrow because he's gone all next week.
Okay.
Rob Service is misspelled. You forgot the I. It was a late night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I
Um,
like it like that, me.
Either that or he was trying to do ceviche.
it's the French version.
Yeah. Tuesday night was 6 a.m. and last night was 3 a.m.
Oh.
Plus, he works all day. I mean, he's on with clients and stuff during the day, so we're working him hard. Oh, okay. All right. Well, tomorrow morning I'm gonna grab this copy after the I's added to service, and then I'll have Brandon put a new copy Dash Electric on your server and replace it on my Sear Imp, so everybody will have a copy to play around with. So you're not going to want a copy then back 2 weeks from now, then when it's officially released, or will you?
Well, I probably will, so I won't do much in that data set other
Okay.
than just kind of probe around.
Okay,
I'll
it's just a
demo
play
it.
one. It's just a play one for you.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and then that way you guys can just replace the current V3 with the
Yes.
new one, and then I can remove that instance. I don't want
Okay.
too many copies running, and then that way I'll get rid of V2. Well, I probably won't. I'll probably keep it there, but
Right.
I'll
No,
put
I
the
understand. Okay. All right. Okay. Good. All right. That's what we have.
perfect.
Yeah, looks good.
Yeah,
Looks
it does
really
look good.
Yeah, I like the idea of moving away from V2 as quick as possible.
I do think this one will mature a lot better than V2. I've left a lot of space in it to add in additional functions, different ways of calculating things, etc. So I do think this is a more buildable platform than what we had. V2 was very locked in, as well as with the process swap. Being able to swap in whatever they want to do or quickly add a process. It's, I think will, especially in the electric side, come to fruition.
Nice job, Rob.
Yeah, really.
Yep.
All right. All right, I'll send you the recording and you'll get your copy tomorrow, hopefully, if Brandon does it for me right away. Okay.
Alrighty.
Great.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
All right.
All
Bye.
right, bye.